Welcome, students. Today we are going to discuss an important poem titled On His Blindness by John Milton. This is a sonnet. A sonnet is a type of poem that has 14 lines. John Milton is one of the greatest poets in English literature. This poem is famous because it talks about his personal struggle with losing his eyesight and how he understands God's purpose in his life. I will explain the poem line by line so that you can understand it clearly. Let us start by understanding the background. John Milton was a well-educated and talented poet. However, he became completely blind around the age of 44. Losing his eyesight was very challenging for him because he loved reading, writing, and creating poetry. This poem reflects his feelings of sadness, frustration, and finally acceptance of God's will. Through this poem, Milton shares an important message about patience, faith, and serving God even when we face difficulties. Now, let us begin with the first line. When I consider how my light is spent. In this line, the poet refers to his eyesight as light. He is thinking about how his light has been spent, which means how he has lost his vision. The word consider means to think carefully. So, Milton is reflecting on his blindness and how it affects his life and work. Losing his eyesight makes him wonder if he will still be able to serve God and fulfill his purpose as a poet. Ere half my days, in this dark world and wide. The word ere means before. Milton is saying that he lost his eyesight before he had lived half of his life. The phrase dark world and wide refers to the world around him, which has now become dark because he can no longer see. The use of the word wide emphasizes that the world is vast, but Milton feels isolated because of his blindness. And that one talent which is death to hide. Milton refers to the one talent. This is a reference to a biblical story from the book of Matthew in the Bible. In that story, a master gives talents to his servants. Talents are coins, and the master expects his servants to use them wisely. One servant hides his talent and is punished. Milton is comparing his poetic talent to that biblical talent. He feels that it would be wrong to hide or waste his God-given gift of writing, even though he is now blind. Lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent. The word lodged means placed or stored. Milton is saying that his talent is with him, but it seems useless because of his blindness. However, his soul more bent means that his spirit is even more determined to serve God despite his disability. To serve there with my Maker, and present my true account, lest he returning chide. The word Maker means God. Milton wants to serve God with his talent. The phrase, present my true account, means to give an honest report of how he has used his abilities. The word returning here means judgment day. The poet is worried that when God returns, God might chide or scold him for not using his talent properly. Doth God exact day labor, light denied? In this line, Milton asks a question. The word day labor means work hard and light denied means blind. The poet wonders whether God expects him to work hard even though he is blind. This question shows Milton's confusion and frustration. He is trying to understand whether God expects the same from him now that he is disabled. I fondly ask. But patience, to prevent that murmur, soon replies. The word of fondly here means foolishly. Milton admits that it was foolish of him to ask that question. The word murmur means complain. The poet says that before he can complain, his patience speaks to him. Patience has been personified as a voice or character. Personification is when a non-living thing is given human qualities. Patience helps Milton understand the situation better. God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts, who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. Patience explains that God does not need human work or gifts. God is all-powerful and does not rely on people. The phrase a mild yoke refers to a light burden. A yoke is a wooden frame used to harness animals like oxen. In this context, it symbolizes the responsibilities given by God. Patience says that those who accept God's will without complaint are the ones who serve him best. His state is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed and post land and ocean without rest. Patience describes God as a king who has thousands of servants ready to carry out his commands. These servants travel across land and sea without rest to fulfill God's will. This shows God's power and the vast number of beings who serve Him. They also serve who only stand and wait. This final line is very important. It means that even those who are unable to take active roles, like Milton because of his blindness, still serve God by being patient and faithful. Waiting patiently and accepting God's will is also a form of service. Analysis of the poem. The poem On His Blindness by John Milton is a deeply personal and spiritual poem that reflects John Milton's inner struggle after losing his eyesight. It addresses universal themes of faith, patience, and the human desire to be useful and purposeful in life. Through the voice of patience, Milton learns to accept his blindness and understands that serving God does not always require active work. The central theme of the poem is the acceptance of God's will. Milton initially feels worried and frustrated because he believes that his blindness prevents him from fulfilling his purpose as a poet. He fears that God will be displeased with him for not using his talent. However, patience reassures him that God does not judge people based on their physical abilities or accomplishments. Instead, God values those who accept His will and remain faithful. One of the key messages of the poem is that waiting and enduring difficulties with faith is a form of service to God. This idea is captured in the famous line, "They also serve who only stand and wait." This line teaches us that patience and acceptance are just as important as active work. Milton's use of literary devices enhances the poem's meaning. The personification of patience gives a human voice to the abstract concept of patience and makes it more relatable to readers. The metaphor of the mild yoke symbolizes the responsibilities given by God and suggests that these responsibilities are not burdensome if accepted with faith. The allusion to the biblical parable of the talents adds a deeper layer of meaning. It highlights the importance of using one's gifts wisely. The poem also explores the concept of divine justice. Milton initially questions whether God is fair in expecting work from someone who is blind. However, he learns that God's expectations are not based on physical ability but on the sincerity and faithfulness of one's heart. This realization brings Milton a sense of peace and acceptance. From a literary perspective, On His Blindness is a Petrarchan sonnet. It follows a structure of an octave, the first 8 lines, and a sestet, the last 6 lines. The octave presents Milton's problem and his feelings of frustration, while the sestet provides a resolution through the voice of patience. This structure allows the poem to move from a state of doubt to one of acceptance and understanding. In conclusion, On His Blindness is a powerful and inspiring poem that teaches us to find meaning and purpose even in difficult circumstances. It encourages us to have faith, be patient, and understand that waiting and enduring with grace is also a valuable form of service. Milton's journey from frustration to acceptance serves as a reminder that God's love and purpose are not limited by our physical abilities but are based on the sincerity of our hearts.